The pits, I can't lift them up. Turtleneck was not a good choice. I look so good. Okay.
You're slaying. You're doing it. Asher, you gotta get one of these.
Yeah. All right, we're going to go into our competing and performing segment. So can you guys all tell us about your experiences at competitions, traveling internationally through shows? Let's start first with Alex.
Yes, because my name starts with the letter A.
Hey. Well, I felt like I was the only one. You go to any competition on the East Coast or anywhere for that matter, and you would not see any other black skaters. We could count them on our hand. Not hands, one hand. It's usually like two of us, maybe three if we're lucky. It was usually myself, maybe Vanessa James and her sister, or it'd be like myself and Hope Alexander. And I think as I got older, like Christine Musademba would show up every now and then. I even saw Quinton at the competition, and he wasn't even skating. He was just there. But getting into shows, I will say that was the first time I saw more minority skaters on a professional level. I think Quinton mentioned this earlier. It's a different perspective when you see people who are on that level. It makes you realize that you can do it. It really does inspire you. Like I said, in my skating rink, we were very diverse. We had quite a few black skaters at the skating rink who were kind of on the same level. But when I was younger, my very first coach when I was in, I think like pre-alpha, alpha, beta, gamma, that whole system, she took me to Fort DuPont Ice Arena in DC to my first scout clinic, which is what I know it is, what I know it to be now. But it was a scout clinic, and there was a skater there by the name of Axel. His name was Axel Meterick, and he was a Disney on Ice performer. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. And I was so excited as a young child to show him my 1 foot spin. Like that was my world. If I could show this bro right here, he's like tall, he looks like me, he has a Disney on Ice shirt, he is somebody. If I could show that guy right there my 1 foot spin, that would be everything. And it meant the world to me. It really did. And then going from there and going to go see So Spectacular on Ice in DC, it was just so inspiring. I saw skaters like, I think Quinton, I think you were there on that show too.
Not that one. I was in Ebony on Ice in Chicago. So like they became two shows, and I did Ebony on Ice in Chicago.
Okay, so I saw the Ebony on Ice show, and I remember the one skater with the curly hair, who I know now is Stephen Smith. I would see him perform, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I want to see it like that guy right there. And then I saw Axel, and I showed him my 1 foot spin. This is amazing. As I got older and I was on shows, and I started to see more black people and people of color on the shows, I'm like, oh my gosh, where have y'all been all of my life? Like, did y'all must have been under a rock, because I never not once seen any of y'all at a competition or anything. Like, where did y'all even come from? And then I was the naive person on I think it was when I got to High School Musical the Ice show the second year around, and we had so many diverse people, and there were some people from South Africa. I'm like, y'all got ice in South Africa? What? Are you serious? But that goes to show how excited we were, to see other people that look like us doing the same thing that we're doing in the caliber that we're doing it in. So getting a chance to share the ice with people like Quinton and sharing with Simeon and sharing with Stephen Smith was the world to me, because I grew up watching them and I was inspired by them because of the level that they were on, because of the platform that they held. And then it was even more surreal when I was on the road and traveling abroad. I was at a hotel in France, and I was sitting in the lobby just on my computer, whatever. And a friend of mine came over. He said, hey, Alex, hey, come over here. Come over to the bar and come meet some friend of mine. I'm like, I don't want to meet any of your friends. I'm over here chilling. This is my me time. It's the day off. I'm just doing my thing. And I look over and I said, that's a black person. Okay, he's the skater. Oh, okay, great. Whoop-de-doo. Maybe I should meet him. Where'd he come from? And I said, what is his name? He said, his name is Axel. I said, well, shut the freaking front door. Are you serious? So I go to him, and mind you, I've been on the road for quite a few years, and I'm an adult now. You know, I'm no longer that little child that was doing a 1 foot spin. But I go over to him like, "Your name is Axel." He says, "Yes, my name is Axel." I said, "Oh my gosh, you probably don't remember me, but a long time ago, when you were in DC, I was this little boy at Fort DuPont Ice Arena." And he finished my sentence, and he said, "And you showed me your 1 foot spin." That right there, oh
Yes.
my good gracious, that that did it for me. And that goes to show that wherever we go, we are such a representation of these young kings and these young queens who are looking for
Yeah.
somebody to look up to prove to them that they too can do anything they put their mind to. And when I go to these other countries, sometimes I don't see no other black people. Sometimes I don't see no other brown people, and it's just me. And I feel like I'm in a big old pond. But like I said, I have to let my personality fill the space, and I have to prove to myself and to everybody else, but more so to myself, why I am there. I am there to serve a purpose, not just because I'm hired to do so, but because there is some other child that looks like me who is waiting for me to come along so that they know that they can put 1 foot in front of the other two. So that's that's how it's been for me on the tour. You know, I do the tour not just for myself, but I do it for other people. It's not just about me. This fight that we're in, this race that we're in for equality and diversity and inclusion is not just about me. Just because we made it to a show platform and we can do all the jumps and all the spins and we're getting paid to talk and people are coming to see the shows and we travel on somebody else's dime, that's great. But until you can reach back and pull somebody else up to where you're at, that's when you've kind of made it. That's when you really feel like, you know what, I can sit back because I brought that child saw me and now they're working alongside of me. That's how I felt when I was skating with a Quinton, when I was skating with a Simeon, when I was skating with a Stephen Smith. I grew up watching them, and then I shared the stage with them. I was just in awe. You couldn't tell me nothing after that. You couldn't tell me nothing.
Translation, he just called me old. That's I'll take it. It's fine.
But you know what though, and it's not just for black and brown skaters. One of the go figure, one of the skaters on our show, on my show that I'm on right now, she saw me skate in High School Musical: The Ice Tour. She was like, "Oh my God, Alex, I watched you when I was so little." I'm like, "Oh, don't tell me. What year were you born in?" She was like, 2000. I'm like, "Oh, stop. Don't want to know." But you know, this is the inspiration. We inspire people. You know, all these Zoom classes and Zoom workshops that we've been doing while we've been here on isolation and haven't been able to go out and do shows like we normally do them. I did a Zoom class as a special guest with a Black classroom, you know, kids of color. And I showed them this amazing behind the scenes footage of the show that we not supposed to show, but I did show anyway because it was, you know, it was a treat for them. Many of them would never get a chance to go to Disney on Ice.
Yeah.
But at the end of it, at the end of them seeing an amazing opening act, an amazing carousel number, an amazing Toy Story film, the first question was, why was there only one Black person out there? These kids notice those things. They see that. You know, it really does something to them.
Yeah, it really does.
So the biggest contribution that I can make is I have to show up. I have to show up and I have to be my best self when I do show up because it's not just about me. It really is not.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's all I have to say about that.
Joey, what about yourself? How can you tell us about you're still competing, right? Is that correct?
Yes, actually, yeah, I competed this season as well. My season was very short, but that's okay. I'm still skating and training as if I'm training for the next season.
Yeah.
But yeah, I started competing kind of on the national level when I was 9, and then I just kept going in the same track all the way till senior. And actually, I competed all through college. Actually, I went to UCLA and I started the UCLA figure skating team with a group of other skaters. I mean, there were like 3 or 4 of us at the beginning, and you know, it's awesome to see, you know, what it's become today as well. But when I graduated with my chemical engineering degree, I worked as a process engineer. I worked as a process engineer for 3 years. And during that time, like, I didn't really have that much time to skate. I would maybe go to the lunch, like sneak out on my lunch break and go to the rink and skate for like 45 minutes and then go back to work until like 7 p.m. And that was like my day to day. And then I started coaching on the side too, back to the fulfillment part that Alex was talking about. It was awesome to be able to give back and support these kids and actually be able to train alongside them. I think that's an awesome experience, and I'm so glad that I got to have that experience in Iowa. But back to engineering was tough. I got into sales. I'm able to build my own schedule, and it allows me to partition my time so that I can make it to the ice arena whenever there's available ice time. And I'm here in Minnesota, so I'm really looking forward to training a lot more now.
First of all, when you said UCLA, I'm like, Jesus, a school I could never get into. Because like, you have to be smart. Like, and then you're like, I'm an engineer. I'm like, what? I'm like, okay. I'm like, I like to just, history. I'm like Quinton. I'm like engineering, all that stuff. I'm like, no, thank you. That ain't.
Yeah, I'm the science nerd over here. Yeah,
and I'm definitely a history.
On top of it, like, whew.
I'm definitely a history nerd. And look, I hate to be this person. No, I don't. Why am I playing? Joey is being so humble, as he always is. His skating is so amazing. This is not me trying to plug myself through him, but like, one of my highest level students competes against him, and it's never a day where like, Joey Millet shows up to the rink and it's like, when he's there, he's there. You know that it's gonna be a battle, no matter what competition he's in. So like,
appreciate that
for your humility, but you are descended from greatness, and it's so amazing.
Thank you, sir.
It's so amazing to see.
Joey, don't come to my rink. Don't come to my rink, Joey. If you show up,
I want to come. I want to come visit.
If you show up to my rink and I'm about to get on the ice, I will turn my butt around. I will get in the car and I will go home.
Man, when this pandemic's over, I'm trying to do like a tour. I want to visit all of y'all and like we can skate together, do something, and record some stuff, have some fun.
Yeah. Well, speaking of like being intimidated by like fellow Blackness, like I'm always very honest about my history. I never got into competition until I started coaching. Like that's when I always wanted to perform, but I really wasn't interested in competition like that. And then I started coaching, and I found a lot of success very early in my career with coaching. But I remember as a skater, so when I started on Disney on Ice, so I did Ebony on Ice. That was my first professional show. And then I went into Disney on Ice. I was, wait for it, very, very, very big, important role. I was Moonfish number 11.
Yes.
Okay, Moon's a
Get into it. I was popping away. For those who know, right? Like moved up and got into like bigger roles and understudying and had roles of my own or whatever. But there was I cannot explain to you the feeling of the first day of rehearsal at High School Musical: The Ice Tour. Because like, it's one thing when you're a Black skater, you walk in and there's a very good chance that you are going to be the only Black person on that show. I was also on The Incredibles, and there were like 3 of us on the show. And you walk in and you see, you have your general, idea of what being in the ice world is like. You walk in and you see the usual, which is a sea of white folks. And then you turn the corner and you see all these Black people. And you're like, and there was a moment where I was like, this does not feel real. Because like, what people don't understand is there were 3 characters that were all Black. And there were 3 shows of High School Musical all rehearsing at the same time. So that's 9 characters that they had to fill. And then they had to have our understudies. So like, so there were so many of us that like we went in there and it just, I mean, and you know, like familiarity is a thing, right? So even the ones that we didn't know well, we all were just like, and I'm telling you, I opened 3 different Disney on Ice shows. The rehearsals for High School Musical were like no other show I had ever been on, because you know there was just so much homegrown, and of course, you know, as Black people, we're not a monolith, right? So you know, I grew up in, you know, incredible poverty, but like there were some other people who didn't, and we were sharing those different experiences, and it was just so amazing. But it was also very pressure filled, right? Because you know, you had, you know, I'm not going to sit here and try to fake humility. I was not the best skater on the ice. That is just, and plus, again, look at the people I skated with. I was used to not being the best skater on the ice. But I knew that I could keep up with everybody on the performance level. Like I knew, you couldn't tell me that we were going to be in those, you know, the rehearsals and I wasn't going to be dancing my face off. But there was also that pressure of like, oh my God, like I remember when Alex Allen was still competing. He was like this little guy out there, this little lefty, little chocolate drop lefty, killing the game. You know what I mean? And now we're sharing a role. And he's out here doing Russian splits and butterflies over his head and my head. And, you know, it wasn't like I was like, I want to compete against him and be better than him. There was this sense of like pride that like, we're all here and we're all doing it. It was one of the most incredible experiences of my life, being in a show, especially because, you know, being a Black person on the shows wasn't always great. It really, really wasn't. We had to deal with all kinds of things, from, you know, seeing people painted Black to perform roles, which really felt disgusting, to off-ice activities that were, you know, based in historical events that are just disgusting, to, you know, being told that are like, you know, so many people. I remember Chrissy Lipscomb, who has been credited with landing a quadruple jump and is one of the best performers out there, being told that she couldn't play any role except for the role that she was playing. But then you had like white girls who were able to play the role she was playing. You know, there's just there was a lot of pain that came with, you know, being a Black skater on the shows, whether it be Disney on Ice, Holiday on Ice, the cruise ships, you know, the stage shows. But I have to say, I will never forget those rehearsals with all of those beautiful Black faces that I also looked up to, because, you know, I'm older than Alex, but I'm younger than, you know, some other people. And, you know, just it was beyond amazing. And I'm so grateful for that experience. And, you know, like, I hope, you know, I hope, huh?
I said the real Black faces.
Yeah.
Not the painted on.
And, you know, there was so much camaraderie amongst us. You know, like, I remember, like, once I retired from shows, the first thing that came into my head was, I need to reach out to Alex. Because, like, I was on the international tour and he was on a stage tour. And, like, I don't know if Alex tells the story so much better than me, but, like, he was the first person who came into my mind, because I was like, Alex needs a piece of this. Because, again, like Alex said, if you're not paying it forward for your community, what are you doing? So, like, I thought of him right away. So it was a great time.
But before we leave the realm of competition and performing, can we talk about, you know, the pressures of, we kind of touched on it a little bit, but I want to dive into more, the pressures of like entering a competition space, knowing that you are a place that's, you're going to be judged, it's figure skating, but knowing that you're possibly the only person in the rink. And for me, sometimes it felt like an entire city, especially when I was like traveling, competing internationally, entering a room to do your sport, to do your craft. And I want to start with you, Joey. Like, how do you deal with that pressure that a lot of people who aren't Black, they don't understand that? Like,
yeah. Well, going to competition, like growing up, I often was the only Black man, one, and in the competition. So it was like normal, right? It became a normal, like the normal that shouldn't be normal, obviously, but it became a little bit more normal, being the only Black man at the rink, and getting into competition a little bit more recently. I've had to come at it with a different attitude a little bit more. I have to look at it differently. Like I have to look at it at a standpoint of I want to reach these goals, and I want to put my best out there. And the goals are more personal than based on the judges, and I have to really think about it that way. Okay, like after I finish a routine and I look at like a protocol sheet, it may not be what I expected. There may be some things that are outrageous, but I'm going to look at it as like, okay, from a very technical aspect, did I meet these goals, X, Y, Z? Like, yes. Because otherwise the pressure, I guess, the feeling of being the only Black man, and then potentially like, could the way you're judged, or could like any of that be affected by you being the Black man in the event? That's too much for me to like even really worry about. I want to be out there to put out my best performances and meet my goals. So that's kind of how it is for me.
Yeah, amazing. I love that you are just going to tackle your goals. You're not thinking about anything else. And sometimes that's what we just have to do as Black people, like forget about all the racism or whatever we see when we go into an arena. We just have to just keep knocking our goals out, and
yes,
and anything
right.
stop us. So that's great. Stay in that mental space so you can kill it next season.
Thank you. I will.
Yeah, it's similar on the coaching end, like even though Joey competes against my student, hopefully he knows that I'm like cheering for him. Like,
yes. Can I speak to that a little bit? I want to get back to that. Okay, so when I first moved to the Midwest, I went to regionals, like first regionals. I think it was at that Blaine Super Rink, and somebody came up to me and was like, "Oh, hey, Quinton," and I was like, "Oh, Quinton," and we had not met yet. So then at the same competition, I met you, and I was like, okay, this is Quinton, and there was that same comfort that you felt whenever you saw Alex in the High School Musical. It was like that comfort of like, hey, there's a brother there, and like we saw each other, and we were like, okay, this is cool, and like I really enjoyed that moment, and then ever since then, it's been great to see you at competitions, and it's just been great to have you around, because I know you're on my side, you're on my team. Even if you do have skaters that are competing against me as well here. So thank you. That's awesome.
Yeah, I can tell you with all certainty, I remember one of the most heartbreaking moments that we had, and hopefully this isn't too triggering for me to bring up, Joey. We were at sectionals, and Joey injured himself. Is that okay to say?
Yes, that happened.
And I just remember my heart sinking, like, and him and his mother and Surya Bonali was there at the time. And, I just like walked up to them, and I was just like, I can't explain to you how heartbreaking, because it felt personal. It felt personal. Like, you see this brother out here, and I tell you, he was eating up those practices and just looking amazing and giving you all of the Black excellence. And it was so beautiful. And I felt a piece of me just like my heart broke for him when it happened, because, like I had that experience too, where people were like, hey, Joey. And I'd be like, when I actually met him in person, I was like, so wait a minute. You mistake me for like someone who is literally a 6'2" supermodel. Like, I'm not gonna call myself ugly. I'm not. But like, there's me giving you this. Joey Millet. Like, and at that point, I just want to like rub them on their chin and be like, oh, your racism is dribbling out. You might want to
clean that up.
You might want to clean that up. Like we don't look alike. Oh my God. Like, but like, you know, like it's just so, it's so silly. But yes, there, I mean, I've always felt a very real like affinity with Joey, even though, you know, we're not the same age, we're not, you know, like, I do think that society teaches Black people to compete against each other.
They sure do.
Yes.
There are a lot
Yes.
of, you know, there, and I would love to hear your perspective on this as well, but there are a lot of Black skaters, especially in the Chicagoland area, a lot of Black skaters, a lot of Black coaches who don't get along. And, you know, like, there's so many times where I want to look and be like, I treasure you and your experience, in your lived experience, but your experience as a skater so much. And even if we don't see eye to eye on like a personality level, even if like we're not ever going to be friends, I just want to like, and for anybody who's watching this, I just wanted to let all of you know that even if we don't have a really great relationship, that like I'm always going to honor you and respect you because we've been through things, and you know, that nobody else can identify with.
Yes.
And even on like things like High School Musical, there were a lot of skaters who weren't Black who would literally try to like pit me against Gerard and Alex. And I'm like, no, 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 we're not doing that. Like, Alex and I are tight. Alex does his thing. I do my thing. I think there's value in both. You're not gonna pit us against each other as Black people. But society and the skating world definitely does that. And I would love to hear how you guys feel about that. Not trying to play host, but
I'll flip it on.
I
us.
Well, I realized that I had like kind of skipped over a little bit about like some of the major Black skaters that had influenced me in my growing up. So like I wanted to mention Andrea Gardner. She's from Houston, and I skated on the ice with her quite a bit growing up, and she was just like kind of my idol, like local idol growing up. So
Powerful skater.
yeah, very powerful skater, and like, you know, she's doing her program, I'm up against the wall. So then when I went to California, I worked with Richard Yule, and that was, you know, a great experience. Having just growing up, I would go to California during the summers and train with him during the summers. So that same feeling of like knowing someone who's been through a similar experience, and understanding that the Blackness of skating it was really comforting. And from that point, I then worked with Saria as well, and it's just been such an honor and privilege. So
That's amazing. All icons you're naming.
Yeah,
Your name is
and
all-
Really.
And I know that in the FSDIA meeting that you had announced that you were going to train a little bit with Saria, and that I'm so happy you were able to do that.
yes, over in Vegas. Yes.
That's so cool. I would love to be taught by her. Like, oh wow, you're the reason I started skating.
She's amazing. I still want to do the backflip. I need some help.
I want to look so yeah, I can do it.
Yeah.
You should just do a little camp.
I know I keep saying I want to leave performing and competing, but I just wanted to talk about, you know, being a coach, because Joey, you also coach as well, and Quinton, you coach as well. Alex, do you coach a little bit?
Not that much. No.
Okay,
when
so
I
we're not
went
talking
home-
to you then. Okay. So
My question.
But you know, being on the other side of the boards and having to motivate your athletes, your students, you know, you get so close to them. But how do you traverse, especially when you're working with a Black skater or a person of color? How do you constantly reinforce that you belong here? I see you for what you are. I know what it took for you to get from school to the ice rink. Like, what do you guys do with that?
Quinton, go. Go ahead, Quinton.
Yeah, I had that experience a lot. You know, there are a couple of layers to it. One, you know, as much as we love to say that it's an inclusive sport and all of these things, I show up to competition and there are definitely people who instantly do not feel like I belong there. A really interesting story also at sectionals, at Skate Detroit. I was there with my skaters, And you know, one of my skaters' parents came up to me and said, you know, this woman just went on and on and on about you, and how, like, you know, she doesn't understand why you're here, and she's never seen you, and she doesn't understand how that black guy is at the wall, and da 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 da. And she didn't realize that my student's father was sitting right next to her. And, you know, he was so upset about the fact that he had heard all this. And he was so confused at my reaction, because I was like, yeah, like, I hear these kinds of things all the time. You know, like, you know, just being called that black coach. You know, I have a name. I have 3 of them, actually. You know, like, and you know, there's always that kind of black tax where you have to prove that you know what you're doing, you know, because they're instantly assuming, you know, I'm not, Surya standing at the wall has, you know, automatic credibility, right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
I'm not Surya Bonali. You know, I'm not Asher Hill. I'm not, you know, I'm not any of these skaters who, you know, has been on the lips of all of these people. But I've like produced over and over and over and over again, and I'm still, you know, that black coach. So you know, there is that. There is this kind of need to have to consistently prove myself, which is, you know, problematic. Also, you know, looking at my students of color, feeling the responsibility to let them know that they belong here. Also letting them know that they don't deserve abuse. I've had way too many times where my skaters come to me upset because someone has said something to them that is inappropriate. And of course, that gaslighting thing that we talked about before, where you feel like, wait, am I crazy? Am I making this up? Is this about race? Is this not about race? You know, is really, you know, sometimes really hard to traverse. Also, you know, with like, you know, I've taught quite a few black girls, and the skating world makes it very clear how they feel about mesh on black girls. And having a young black girl come to me saying, none of these dresses are for me, which people don't understand how deep that is, because when you're an 8-year-old girl and none of the dresses reflect your identity, it instantly feels like this sport is not for you.
Yes.
And that you don't belong. So in a coaching way, one, I have to put a lot of energy into circumventing that experience and cutting it off at the pass and making sure that they have access points to everything that they deserve. And then I have to troubleshoot when somebody says something really crazy to them, like, you know, why isn't your ponytail straight? It's like, because this is the way it grows out of her head and it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Like, her hair defies gravity. You wish yours could.
Right?
So
it's so crazy, the layers and layers of trauma you have to go through and then still perform at a high level. It's just like, it's unbelievable. I'm like, we do it so well still. Like, we can do it so well. And it's just like, but here's all the abuse we get to where we are. It's crazy to me. Like, we're so magical, Black people.
For sure. And for me in Iowa, I coached for 5 years, and I coached some skaters for 5 years from that point. So like from maybe like an axle double sow all the way through double lutz, double axle, starting to work on triples. So that was an awesome, like a rewarding experience to work with skaters for such a long period of time. But like, I'm going to give you an anecdote situation where with a skater of color that was one of my students. So there's a group of skaters that were together, two white skaters, one person of color, and someone offered me a complaint about my skater of color, saying that, okay, they're talking in groups, and my skater is initiating it, and to you, some of you have mentioned the point of singling out a Black skater or a skater of color, or person of color, without finding the evidence to back that up.
Yeah.
Instantly makes them feel like, how does it make them feel? So I had to take a deep breath, and then I gently told her, now please, tell me, if someone came to you and said this about you and your friends, even you today, how would that make you feel? Now think about it if you were at the age of 14, how would that make you feel? Now think about it as if you were a person of color. How would that make you feel? And then I was like, you can't really assume that. And I've seen them talking before. It's all of them together. So it needs to be the group of them together, being accused of talking and making a ruckus on the ice rather than this one person. So that's a situation where I really had to find that I had to level with them as a person of color and be the defense as a coach. And I'm so glad that I'm able to do that and really be there for those people.
Thank you guys for doing that. It's something we have to do, to be honest. It's like why we need Black doctors, why we need Black educators, why we need like people who are in positions to literally hold your life in your hands, politicians, but not, and to reflect that experience, not only for visibility, but to be like, this is why we navigate this way, and this is how we're going to protect them, and this is like, we always have to constantly have that. So big ups to you, big ups to all of us, I guess, a little bit, showing ourselves a little bit of gratitude, because it does take work, but it comes from that place.
I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please tune in next week for part 3.
FSDIA's Conversations in Color is recorded and edited in Toronto and Pickering, Ontario, Canada, on the traditional lands of the Haudenosaunee, Mississauga of Scugog, Wendat, Huron-Wendat, and the Mississauga of the Credit.
Thank you so much for tuning into FSDIA's Conversations in Color. Please subscribe to our channel. Find us on the gram at Figure Skating DIA, on Facebook at the Figure Skating Diversity and Inclusion Alliance, and our website at fsdia.org. And remember to color your ice.